Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Soccerex Connected, the conference digitally connecting people involved in the game all over the world. I'm John Strong with Fox Sports in the United States. I'm here with the president of Concacaf and FIFA Vice President Victor Montagliani to talk about global football, the challenges surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, and what's coming in 2021 and beyond. Now, we know the joy and emotional rewards that millions of fans get from football and how in the CONCACAF region, we celebrate and combine the best of sports excellence, inclusion, and respect from all of our cultures, from the edge of the North Pole to the South American coastline. Under the leadership of President Victor Montagliani, the 41 member nations of CONCACAF are united in our love of the game to provide access to quality football across North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Let's take a look now at a video that showcases CONCACAF's core values and its mission to develop, promote, and manage football with integrity, transparency, and passion to inspire participation in the game. And so with that, let's say hi to the president of CONCACAF and FIFA Vice President Victor Montagliani. And Victor, I guess we can start with the simplest of questions, which provides probably the most complicated of answers. What have you seen as far as the impact that this COVID-19 pandemic has had on the CONCACAF region, but also football globally in 2020?
Yeah, first and foremost, John, hello to you, and I hope everyone out there is doing well, safe and sound during these difficult and challenging times that the entire planet is going through. Obviously, football is no different. We've had some challenging times, not only, as you said, within CONCACAF, but also globally. And, you know, a lot of it's been documented in terms of leagues that had to be suspended, competitions that had to be suspended. You know, we've done a very good job amongst the confederations and even at the FIFA level with our relief plans. Some of the sort of not only relief from a monetary standpoint, but also relief from also statutory in terms of helping out with contracts and all the things that needed to be done. And also some protocols put in place to get the game back up and running. You saw the successes, you know, in Europe. You've seen the successes here in North America and in the CONCACAF region with leagues starting back up. And so, you know, I think the game is slowly coming back. Maybe not back what we would like it to be with fans or full stadiums, but you know, it's football is always a tough sport to keep down, and I think it's slowly but surely coming back. But I think the other thing too that we've realized is it's not just the obvious, which is the major leagues and the big clubs and stuff, but I think a lot of sort of the issues have been sort of even at the grassroots level, you know, with youth tournaments that have had to be canceled, and those are dreams of young people. I mean, the great thing is that they're young, so you know, if they're 15 this year, they'll be 16 next year, so they will continue. But I know that that's always been a tough thing. So it's really gone from grassroots right up to, you know, the Champions League level, and so you know, it's been impacted from all angles. But I think slowly but surely, we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel in terms of bringing the game back.
And you speak to what I'm sure the challenge is, because we know how geographically vast the CONCACAF region is, different cultures, different languages, and it's not like you can just be hopping on a plane right now. What are some of the things that CONCACAF has done, and FIFA as well, trying to make sure that the support is getting down to that grassroots level, spread across all this region, particularly when travel is so restricted?
Yeah, the international component of in CONCACAF has been, obviously we have postponed that. We're hoping to start it back up, World Cup qualifying next March. At the club level, we're looking to start it at the end of the year. You know, and that is challenging. CONCACAF is challenging at the best of times with our travel, and now with this put in place and all each different requirement from each country. You know, it's unlike other places in the world where there's more homogenistic in terms of governance, like Europe, for instance. The governance of Europe is very homogenistic because of the European bloc. Obviously, here we're dealing with not only 41 member associations, but 41 different governments with the pandemic at different levels. So those are things you have to keep in mind. But I think we've done a good job with our member associations of really clearly looking at what the protocols need to be in order for us to start, for instance, our club competitions back up in we're looking at it down the line here in the next month or two to start up our club competitions that will require cross-border travel.
Let's stay big picture for a minute, because you speak to it a little bit. You inherited a challenging situation with Concacaf. I know you and your staff have put a lot of work in over the last 4 years. What have you been able to accomplish with the Concacaf region, with the governance, all those sorts of things that put you in a position now to be able to find successes in this incredibly challenging moment we find ourselves in this year?
I think the hats off goes to everybody. These situations it's not about one person or even a small group. It's really about the collective. And we came out of the gate with two main philosophies. One, it had to be a football first mentality, that every decision needed to make sure that it was about football. And the second one was about one Concacaf, really coming together as 41 member associations for the betterment of the Confederation, not just about one region or the other region. That has been taken on wholeheartedly and really has allowed us, when I first walked in the door, you could only not even think about tomorrow. You can only think about the next hour, quite frankly. And now, as I said to my membership last year, I said, we've now earned the right, after, the 4 years that the hard work that we put in, to think long-term. And the reason we've learned the right is because it is about football. It is about the Nations League that we created and the stories that have come out of that. It's about the Gold Cup that has been increased, not only in the teams and the group stage, but obviously now in the preliminary round. It's about our women's strategy. It's about our youth competitions that are now a better experience for the youth player, because they see all their peers when they come to a centralized venue rather than having to travel throughout the region. Those are a lot of them are little things. Some of them are obviously bigger, but the reality is it's really been about football and what we put in place. And so my hat goes off to not only our staff, but also our member associations who really bought into that philosophy.
It's an interesting phrase you use there, sort of earning the right to be able to start to have those conversations. And I'm curious too, sort of from a leadership standpoint, finding that balance of making sure you're connected with everyone, but that it doesn't become overbearing. You're trying to allow people on a local level to have that autonomy as well. How do you balance that, particularly, as you said, with 41 nations that are incredibly diverse in culture and language and geography? What's the right balance you and your staff have found of how to be collective leaders, but also how to make sure you're allowing people to lead, at their own grassroots level?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and it's actually palatable when you come into one of our meetings, whether it's a president's meeting or at our Congress, the authenticity of the room is something that was never there before, and something that is, I think I'm really proud of. The authenticity in that, the shift of culture, not only from always about politics, but now about football. Also, the authenticity that people are able to speak with a free mind. People are able to find their voice, not only as an individual, but as a collective. And for me, that has been really the sign of our growth, is the authenticity of the leadership and the candor that we speak. And those are the things that I think are very, very important for our organization. And honestly, is what brought us now to this point from where we were back in 2015.
I know one of the big things that's on people's minds right now, we're just over 2 years away from a World Cup in Qatar, and a qualifying process which was supposed to have already been underway. Continued challenges, continued delays. How are you in CONCACAF, but also how are you seeing FIFA globally trying to navigate figuring out a qualification process when so many of the fundamental elements that go into World Cup qualifying and international football just aren't really possible right now?
Yeah, we took a decision, obviously, that we will start our first round in March of 2021, and with the second round being in the second window in June, and with the final round of 8 starting in September. We also are working with FIFA and the other confederations about how that will look like from the dates in late 21 and 22. But we're all at the same table. It's not so much just really a CONCACAF challenge. It's really everybody's challenge. And the reality is that we're all in the same boat. Obviously, others are in different stages. But at the end of the day, regardless of what it's going to look like. Obviously, we needed to change our format because of the realities that the old format really, for many, many reasons, wasn't going to work. But whatever the format is, at the end of the day, once the ball starts rolling, players and coaches are not going to forget about the format, and fans will forget about the format or the dates and all these things that we're talking about now, and they'll just be worrying about the results. And so the main thing is, we need to get the ball rolling, and we will get it rolling in March of 2021.
I like what you said there about, everyone's in the same boat, because I think we came into this pandemic. Listen, you've got confederations, you've got leagues, you've got clubs. There's a lot of competing interests. There's a lot of voices in those conversations, and they're all sort of battling for prestige and power and all that. What have you seen in this pandemic as far as trying to get a lot of the different elements, a lot of the different players in global football, but also in the Concacaf region, trying to get everyone that much more aligned out of necessity to find solutions right now?
Yeah, I think one of the shifts has been, pre-COVID, there was a lot of focus on the differences, whether it doesn't matter at what level, whether it was between clubs or between leagues, between confederations, FIFA and confederations, member associations. And I think immediately when the pandemic hit, the focus was not on our differences, but on our similarities, and that at the end of the day, we are all interconnected. And if anything that this pandemic showed is how interconnected we are, because players are from all over the world. Assets are from all over the world. So it doesn't matter which confederation it is. You have to rely on other parts of the globe to run your business, whether it's the players that come in to play in your leagues, whether it's sponsors that are global sponsors, fans, media. And so the interconnectivity became quite heightened and shown. And I think that led to, just in my time in the game, really an unprecedented cooperation for all things, whether it's calendars, whether it's contracts, whether it's the COVID relief plan. And so I hope that, when we come, the post-COVID era continues with that, and that we don't go back to maybe an attitude where at times there seemed to be a zero-sum game attitude with respect to this is my agenda, and I really don't really care about your agenda. And so I think that that to me has been a striking learning lessons that I've seen during COVID, is that interconnectivity and how really a high tide raises all boats, not just the big ones.
There's another unifying opportunity off on the horizon, of course. That's in 2026, and the FIFA Men's World Cup, which will be tri-hosted, I guess you could say, between Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Also an expansion of the field, though, and an unprecedented opportunity to have CONCACAF participation in the World Cup, let alone all the commercial off-field possibilities. Even though it's 6 years out, what does that World Cup represent? And what sort of opportunities does it provide that you can start building on even now?
I've been clear with, first and foremost, my presidents, and told them right off the bat that, and it all has to start there. It has to start with football. But everything else, in my opinion, builds from there. We have an opportunity as CONCACAF, not only to host, obviously in our region, a great event, but we have an opportunity to have 6 direct spots and 2 through the playoff, which means that 8 CONCACAF teams could be playing in the World Cup. Our goal is to have 8 CONCACAF teams in the World Cup, not 6, not 7, 8. And because that's then a sign of all the work we're doing leading up to there, whether it's at the youth level, whether it's through the Nations League, whether it's through all the things that we're working on right now. To me, that is really the end goal, to have 8 CONCACAF teams at the World Cup. And from there, everything else really, is a support mechanism for football, whether it's on the commercial side, whether it's on the governance side. All that is supporting, to me, what the ultimate goal should be for our confederation, is to make sure that there's 8 of our countries walking onto the pitch, not 6 or 7, when we kick off in 2026.
There's a lot of that you obviously can't control, the bounces of the ball and moments on the field. How confident are you in the things that you can control that you could achieve that goal?
I'm confident because if you just look at our first edition of the Nations League, and you look at our last Gold Cup, and you look at things, for instance, countries like Bermuda walking into Panama, who 2 years ago played in the World Cup and beating them in Panama. when you look at a country, the smallest country in the world, Montserrat, getting a result against El Salvador. When you look at Haiti, who was in the semifinal of the Gold Cup last year, and unlucky to not be in the final, to be honest with you, now didn't even qualify for the Gold Cup this year and are in the preliminary round. Those are all signs that a lot of our countries that were probably unsung or not known, like a Curacao, for instance, are now all of a sudden, hold on a sec here, there's players here. And the reason why is because we've given them an opportunity. You know, before, these countries never had an opportunity. There was never really any programming. And now there's an opportunity through our programs like the Nations League and the expanded Gold Cup to actually not only provide a program, but also to provide something to the players that they also want to play for their national teams. And so I think that process will lead us to a position where I'm confident that we will reach our goal in 2026.
Speaking of opportunities that haven't existed historically, perhaps, let's talk about the women's game a little bit, because it does feel like we're in a watershed moment for women's football. And certainly the leading role the United States has played, Canada as well, consistent World Cup participants. We've seen Costa Rica and Jamaica make recent World Cups out of Concacaf. Where do you see, pandemic aside, the women's game at right now? And what sort of role can Concacaf play at the leading edge of growing the women's game?
Yeah, for us, it's a twofold approach. Obviously, through our women's strategy led by Karina LeBlanc, the approach needs to be, obviously, we know what we have at the sharp edge of the game. You just mentioned it: U.S. world champions, Canada historically, medalists in the Olympics. Countries that are actually investing in the game and having leagues like a Mexico and a Costa Rica, growing a Jamaica, for instance, that had their first time appearance. But it's also on the other end too, as well. And because I think if we just look at the sharp edge of the game through competitions, through leagues, which is very, very important, of course, but if we don't do what we need to do from a development standpoint, so that every girl in our region has the opportunity to play football. And I know that sounds, in 2020, you sound, what do you mean every opportunity? Well, the reality globally is that opportunity doesn't exist. And that, to me, is the first wall that needs to be broken down. And so as we move forward with this, is that we need to ensure and have this vision that not only are we taking care of the sharp edge of the game and some of the issues that have arisen there, but really ensuring that there's a plethora of young women that are playing the game and having the opportunity, and the same opportunity that young boys have in countries perhaps traditionally that was neglected.
When the pandemic hit in March and when things were shut down, we were in the midst of the beginning of the quarterfinal round of the Concacaf Champions League, and we were all getting excited for an LAFC Cruz Azul. You had Atlanta versus Club America. It felt like an incredibly exciting start to the Champions League. Short term, how do you finish 2020? How does that affect 2021? But also, what are you trying to do to continue to grow that the Concacaf Champions League can continue to grow in prominence globally as well?
Yeah, I think we've seen a tremendous growth in the Champions League just over the last 2 years by changing the format and a more sort of meaningful games with a knockout stage. 2020, we're already speaking to the stakeholders, the leagues that are still involved in this final stage, and everything's on the table, including a centralized type version that you've seen other leagues do. But that will likely happen towards the end of the year that we're looking at. So everything is a possibility on that, but we will finish our 2020. Obviously, FIFA's Club World Cup is also part of that process, and FIFA hasn't made a decision on what they were going to do with the Club World Cup that was scheduled in December. Obviously, there's a lot of other confederations that are still not finished. In fact, Club in South America, they just started their process so they're ending in January. So I think all likelihood FIFA is going to probably look at the Club World Cup being pushed out to early next year, because a lot of our confederations like ourselves haven't finished our Champions League. In terms of the Champions League itself, I think that's our next frontier with respect to an asset that could really grow. You've seen a lot more, obviously, the growth of our two big leagues, but also the growth of leagues in Central America, and also even in Canada now has a new Canadian Premier League. And also now some of the Caribbean countries are now really looking at the ability to have a bigger version of professional football in some of their domestic leagues. And that behooves us to grow the Champions League to what it is now, because if you compare it to other confederations, we don't play the same amount of games. And so it's really about more games more often, giving opportunities to clubs that we all resonate with in our own domestic leagues to play at another level. Because to be honest with you, I think leagues, it's very difficult for leagues to be relevant if they don't have an international standard. And really that's what the Champions League provides. And so we're on the record of stating that our Champions League will grow, it will increase. That will likely start post 22 after the FIFA World Cup. And we're already in discussions with our stakeholders from a calendar standpoint to ensuring how that looks. And so I think we're in a position hopefully to make an announcement at some point next year with respect to our new enhanced and more robust Champions League for fans that will be able to see those rivalries more often.
One of the most fun things I've gotten to be a part of was the Copa America Centenario 4 years ago. We had a combined tournament of Concacaf and CONMEBOL, and it's a question that we hear a lot, even as broadcasters. What might be the future for future collaborations between sort of the Western Hemisphere confederations? What sort of conversations are there? What sort of interest is there either in combined Copa America tournaments or other sort of collaboration like that?
Yeah, well, you saw the announcement of our Gold Cup. We have a collaboration with the Asian Football and Conference at many levels, development level and stuff like that. And now we've invited a guest, Qatar, into our Gold Cup for 21 and 23. So as you can see, there is collaboration. Centenario was a great event, but with respect to that specific issue, to be honest, we've moved on. I think in the short term or medium term, that's not on not on anybody's agenda. But I think long term, these are things that I think need to be looked at. I mean, we have collaboration also with UEFA at the youth level. And so these are things I think that we need to really look at. And it's something that your previous question about the pandemic, I think one of the learning curves is that I think we need to learn how to kind of do business more often with ourselves. I think one of the biggest issues in global football is that there's too many hands in the pot, unfortunately, and that sometimes the capital escapes the game, and it's not left in the game for the development of the game. I think part of that is because we probably allow too many third parties into the game. I think what we need to learn is that it is our game, it is associated football, and that I think if we can do more business with each other more often between confederations, amongst confederations, I think that will make the game a lot healthier than it has been even in the past.
We've got about 90 seconds left of where you have a platform for the global football industry. So I'm curious what else you would like to be able to say again as whatever light exists at the end of this pandemic tunnel, but also excitement building forward. What else is on your mind right now? What else do you want to sort of project out?
Really, listen, I think one thing we've always learned about football, that it's really, at the end of the day, it's about players and the fans. That has saved football through all of its dark days in the last decade. That people still went to the stadiums, they still want to see their players, they still went with the colors of their national team or their club. And really, those are the two dynamics that have always been consistent in football that I think have underpinned football, is players and fans. And I think we need to learn that really at the end of the day, yes, we're always trying to push programming, push events and everything, but we're really, at the end of the day, it's the human aspect of football that is, to me, the most important. And I think, we're talking on Zoom here right now, John, but I would prefer to be sitting down with you, having this conversation. And because I probably would have walked in and gave you a hug and say, how are you? And you know what? I miss that. I know it's very simple, but I actually, it's the human connectivity of football is what's missed the most. And I think we got to learn that, and maybe we can learn from that today. Maybe in certain situations where maybe we haven't treated people the way we should, we're going to treat them better. But also just remind what, for those of us that are in football, that it really is part of our DNA, and that we can't forget that post-COVID.
No, I agree with that. Definitely. I miss walking into a stadium, hearing the fans roar, being able to
Me
just
too.
stay quiet and just let the fans tell the story. So hopefully those days are coming again. Victor Montagliani, president of Concacaf, FIFA vice president, thank you very much for your time and your insight. And yeah, we'll owe each other a hug down the road next time we get to cross paths.
Thanks, John. Take care, mate.